Here's something nobody tells you about jealousy between friends. It rarely starts with hatred. It doesn't begin with some dramatic betrayal or a screaming match in a parking lot. No, it starts with something far more invisible, far more quiet. It starts with an identity threat. See, your jealous friend isn't actually threatened by your success. They're threatened by what your success says about them. Your growth quietly destabilizes their identity, their role, and their entire self-image. And the worst part? They probably don't even realize it's happening. One day you're equals. You're on the same level, struggling through the same problems, complaining about the same things. And then something shifts. You get the promotion. You start the business. You lose the weight. You find the relationship. And suddenly, the friendship dynamic that felt so comfortable starts to crack. They didn't lose you. They lost who they were next to you. And that distinction is everything. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly why your growth feels dangerous to certain friends, the 3 questions that reveal when someone is experiencing an identity threat, and how to protect your direction without burning bridges you might still need. Let's get into it. Before jealousy ever becomes visible, something invisible happens first. You change, you improve, you grow. Maybe it's gradual, maybe it's sudden. But either way, the friendship dynamic that once felt balanced starts to tilt. Roles that were never spoken out loud, but were always understood, suddenly don't apply anymore. Think about it. Every friendship has an unspoken structure. There's the funny one, the successful one, the one who gives advice, the one who needs it, the ambitious one, the laid-back one. These roles aren't written down anywhere, but they exist, and they create a kind of psychological comfort for everyone involved. Now here's the problem. When you grow, when you level up, when you step into a version of yourself that doesn't fit the old role, you're not just changing yourself, you're changing the entire structure of the friendship. And for some people, that structure was the only thing holding their identity together. They knew who they were because of where they stood next to you. And now that you've moved, they don't know where they stand anymore. This is the invisible shift. It happens before the passive-aggressive comments, before the backhanded compliments, before the sudden silence when you share good news. The jealousy you eventually see, that's just the symptom. The identity threat, that's the disease. Let me explain something called identity anchoring. We don't define ourselves in isolation. We define ourselves relative to others. Your sense of self isn't just built on what you've accomplished. It's built on how you compare to the people around you. This is basic human psychology. We're social creatures. We measure ourselves against our environment. Now, in a healthy friendship, this comparison is balanced. You win some, they win some. You struggle, they struggle. There's a kind of equilibrium that makes everyone feel secure. But the moment you start pulling ahead, the moment your progress becomes undeniable, something uncomfortable happens in their mind. Your success forces self-comparison. And self-comparison, when you're not ready for it, feels like an attack. Suddenly, they're not just watching you succeed, they're watching themselves fall behind, and their identity starts to wobble. Here's an example. Let's say you were always the ambitious one in the friendship. You were the one with the big dreams, the crazy ideas, the relentless drive. And your friend? They were the realistic one, the grounded one, the one who kept you humble. Now imagine you actually make it. You build the thing. You achieve the goal. Suddenly, their role as the realistic one doesn't feel wise anymore. It feels like an excuse. It feels like they were just scared. And now they're asking themselves a question they never wanted to face. If you were the ambitious one, and suddenly, I'm not, who am I now? That question is terrifying. And most people would rather resent you than answer it. Now let's get practical. How do you actually know when a friend is experiencing an identity threat? There are 3 types of questions they'll ask, and once you recognize them, you'll never unhear them. Question type number 1, the status check. This sounds like, so, how serious is this really? Or, is this actually going somewhere? Or, do you think you're ready for that? On the surface, it sounds like curiosity, maybe even concern. But listen to what they're really asking. Translation, are you actually above me now? They're trying to measure the gap. They want to know if your success is real or if it's something they can still dismiss. Because if they can minimize it, they can protect their position. Question type number 2, the belonging test. This sounds like you're not changing, right? Or you're still the same person, yeah? Or don't forget where you came from. Again, it sounds supportive, like they just want to make sure you stay grounded. Translation, are you still one of us? What they're really asking is whether your growth means you're leaving them behind, because if you're still one of them, then your success doesn't threaten the group identity. But if you're becoming someone new, that's a problem. Question type number 3, the self-protection probe. This is the most subtle one. It sounds like, do you think this will last? Or, what's your backup plan? Or, I just don't want you to get hurt. It sounds caring. It sounds protective. Translation, please fail so my identity survives. They're not hoping you fail because they hate you. They're hoping you fail because your failure would restore the balance. It would put things back to normal. It would let them stop questioning themselves. These 3 questions, the status check, the belonging test, and the self-protection probe, are the fingerprints of identity threat. Learn to recognize them. Now here's something important, and I want you to really hear this. Most jealous friends will never admit they're jealous. Not to you, not even to themselves. And it's not because they're evil. It's not because they're master manipulators. It's because admitting jealousy would mean admitting something far more painful. Admitting jealousy equals admitting identity collapse. Think about what jealousy really is. It's looking at someone else's success and feeling like it diminishes you. It's acknowledging that you wanted something you didn't get. It's confessing that you feel left behind. That's not an easy thing to say out loud. That's not an easy thing to even think. So instead of admitting it, they disguise it. They wrap it in concern. They hide it behind humor. They dress it up as curiosity or caution or just being real with you. Jealousy hides best behind good intentions. That's why it's so confusing when you're on the receiving end. Because the words sound supportive, the tone sounds friendly, but something feels off. Something feels heavy, and you can't quite put your finger on it. Now you can. It's identity threat wearing a mask. Let me give you some patterns to watch for, not accusations, patterns. First, less celebration, more silence. When you share good news, pay attention to the response. A real friend celebrates. They ask questions. They want details. A friend experiencing identity threat goes quiet. They change the subject. They give you a flat, "That's cool," and move on. Silence after success is a signal. Second, humor that suddenly has an edge. Jokes are one of the easiest places to hide resentment. If your friend starts making jokes about your success, jokes that feel a little too pointed, a little too frequent, a little too specific, that's not just humor. That's a pressure release valve for feelings they can't express directly. Pay attention to what people joke about. It's rarely random. Third, support that feels conditional. This is subtle but important. A real friend supports you regardless of outcome. A friend in identity threat supports you only when your success stays within acceptable limits. The moment you exceed those limits, the support disappears. Or worse, it flips into criticism disguised as advice. Watch for these patterns. They'll tell you more than words ever will. Now let's talk about what not to do, because your response matters. First, don't over-explain your progress. When you sense jealousy, the temptation is to justify yourself, to explain why you deserve your success, to make it seem smaller so they feel better. Don't do that. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your growth, and shrinking yourself to make others comfortable is a betrayal of everything you've worked for. Second, don't seek validation from them. If someone is experiencing identity threat, they are the last person who can validate you. Seeking their approval is like asking someone drowning to throw you a life jacket. They don't have it to give. Find your validation elsewhere. Or better yet, find it within yourself. Third, don't confront unless absolutely necessary. Confrontation rarely works with identity threat, because remember, they probably don't even know they're jealous. They've convinced themselves their behavior is reasonable. So if you come at them with accusations, they'll just get defensive, and you'll look like the problem. You don't defend growth, you let it speak. So what do you actually do? Here's my answer, and it might surprise you. You don't need to cut them off. You don't need to have a dramatic conversation. You don't need to announce your boundaries or make a big deal out of anything. You just need to protect your direction. That means being selective about what you share. Not everyone deserves access to your dreams. Not everyone has earned the right to speak into your future. Some people get the highlight reel. Some people get the behind the scenes. Choose wisely. That means paying attention to how you feel after interactions. If you consistently feel drained, doubted, or diminished after spending time with someone. That's data. Use it. And that means accepting a hard truth. Some friendships are seasonal. Some people were meant to walk with you for a chapter, not the whole book. And that's okay. It doesn't mean the friendship was fake. It just means it's run its course. When your growth threatens someone's identity, the answer isn't to shrink. It's to move quietly. You don't need to make noise. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to keep going, keep building, keep becoming. The right people will celebrate you. The wrong people will reveal themselves. And your job is simply to stay focused on the path in front of you. So here's what I want you to take from this. Jealousy between friends is rarely about you. It's about what your growth exposes in them. It's about identity. It's about comparison. It's about the uncomfortable questions your success forces them to ask themselves. Understanding this doesn't mean you excuse bad behavior. It means you stop taking it personally. It means you recognize the pattern for what it is. And it means you protect your energy for the people and the goals that actually deserve it. You've worked too hard to shrink now. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, which of the 3 question types have you experienced? Was it the status check, where they tried to measure how far ahead you really are? The belonging test, where they questioned if you're still one of them? Or the self-protection probe, where concern was really just hoping you'd fail? I read every comment. And honestly, your answers help shape what I cover next. Subscribe, because we want to help you become better with every day.